In today's lecture, we will see how to apply criteria and group functions. As you know that we studied group functions like min, max, average, count, etc. Uh, and we know that when we have to apply criteria, we use the where clause in the select query. But if we have to apply criteria on the result of a group function, then we use the having clause. So let's do it by examples. So here is this Sequoia database and the payment table of the Sequoia database. First, let's write a query to in which we will group all the records by customer ID, and we want to find the total rent paid by each customer. So we will apply the sum function on the amount field. So select customer ID comma sum amount from payment, where okay, I don't have any where criteria. Group by customer ID. Now this is a simple group by query in which I will group all the records by customer ID, and I will calculate the total amount or rent paid by each customer. And let's name this field as total rent paid. So this is the result. Now let's say if I want to apply criteria on this column. Now this column is the result of this group function sum amount, and let's say the criteria is I want to display total rent paid by each customer where total rent is less than, suppose, $50. So then it means I want to apply my criteria on this column, and this column is a calculated field column, or the column on which I have applied the group function. So let's see how we can do it. So whenever we have to apply criteria on a group function column, we use the having clause, and we write the criteria in the having clause. So the criteria will be having some amount less than 50. So syntax is you write the having clause, then you write the group function column, and you will write it in the same way, like you will write the name of the function, and inside the bracket you will write the field name on which the function is, this function will apply, and then you mention your criteria. So now let's see the result. So it means there is no customer whose total amount paid in rent is less than 50. Let's change the criteria and let's make it 80. So here is the list of all the customers whose total rent paid is less than $80. So let's take another example. Suppose I want to list down all the customer IDs whose total rent paid is more than 80 but less than, suppose, 100. Having some amount is greater than or equal to 80 and some amount is less than or equal to 100. So here are the results. Remember that whenever you have to apply criteria like this, you have to use this group function syntax again and again whenever you have to apply a criteria value. Okay, now let's say I want to narrow down my results for a specific month, and the month field, which is payment date, is not uh, is not the one on which any group function is being applied. So then the criteria will be written using the where clause, and where clause is always written before the group by clause. So I will write here where payment date is greater than or equal to 2005 January 1st, and payment date is less than or equal to 2005 June 1st. We you know that MySql stores the date in uh, standard format, and the standard date format is, first of all, we mention the year in as 4-digit number, then we type the month number as a 2-digit number, and then we type the date number or date as a again as a 2-digit number, and the date is entered as a text, so we will enclose it in single quotes. So now what will happen? First of all, the where criteria will be applied, and it will narrow down the results. It will only pick the records between these two days. Then on those set of records, the group by clause will be applied, and there will be a grouping on customer ID, and the sum of all the amounts or the total amount paid by each customer will be calculated, and at the end the having clause will be applied, and it will further narrow down the result on the basis of this criteria. So it means that between these two dates we don't have we have no records. So let's change the criteria. uh, so now we got the result. So it means between these two dates the total rent amount paid are these. So we can see that there is hardly any amount which is greater than or equal to 80. Okay, let's change the criteria. Let's instead of uh, entering the sum amount less than or equal to 100, let's make it greater than or equal to 4 and less than or equal to, let's say, 10. Having some amount greater than or equal to 4 and less than or equal to 10. So now the results will be further narrowed down. So anyway, this is how we apply a criteria on the group functions. So remember that if you have to use the where clause, first of all you will use the where clause, then the group by clause, and then the having clause. Where clause will narrow down the results of the select query. Then the grouping clause will apply grouping on those narrow down results, and at the end, if we have a having clause, then the results will be further narrowed down on the basis of criteria of a having clause.